Justice TV.
Hello viewers, you're most welcome to yet another episode of Soaring with Eagles. We are live on all our manifest platforms. My name is Pastor Joy Ninsiima, and today our guest is a distinguished jurist and one of Uganda's most respected legal minds, Honorable Lady Justice Catherine Bamugemerire, currently serving as the Justice of the Supreme Court of Uganda. Her career spans decades of dedicated public service, integrity, and fearless commitment to justice. Throughout the legal career, Justice Bamugemereire has held various roles, including the chairperson of high-profile commissions of inquiry, where her firm but fair leadership and national admiration. Beyond the courtroom, she's a trailblazer for women in the legal profession and an inspiring role model for future generations. Today we have the great honor of hearing her insights on leadership, integrity, and the pursuit of justice. Please join me in warmly welcoming the Lady Justice Catherine Bamugemerire to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry if I have pronounced your name wrongly.
No offense, not at all.
Yes.
I think it went very well.
It went very well.
Yes, of course. I think that I don't know whether we needed to say all that, but
yeah. Well, that is who you are. Yes.
The less, the better. But
yes.
Yeah.
You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So, Lady Justice, can you start by telling us how you grew up, what your family background was like?
Thank you very much. I have already been introduced, so I don't need to say my name, but I grew up in a blended family. So a blended family means that we were not a purely monogamous family.
Yes.
Yes. It was an interesting way to grow up for me, and I think it kind of partly made me who I am. I am also a middle child of sorts, and as a middle child, I learned to play the role of amicus, of sort of being the tiebreaker, and
yes.
And also maybe the one who mends. And I think I played that role throughout my life. I also grew up in Mbale town when it was one of the cleanest cities, I think the cleanest city in Eastern Southern Africa. It was extremely clean. We went to school there. I went to one primary school, North Road Primary School, and went from North Road Primary School on district scholarship, having been, I think, the third or second best student. Yes, and I was admitted to Namali High School.
Yes.
Because my parents said so. And my parents didn't want me to go anywhere out of town. We grew up at a time when we did not have the 4 points in P7. Primary 7, you had 300 marks or something, and I got 240 something. So I had done really, really well.
So you were a very brilliant student from primary.
From primary, yes. So I went on bursary to the secondary school. Secondary school, Namali High School, was a turning point for me as well, because in there I learned to bring out the best in me. I realized music, literature, faith, fellowship, leadership were in me, and that school helped me to bring that out.
Right.
And I became a head girl. And then I went to university when Makerere University was the only university. To go to Makerere, I again, of course, performed well, and I was able to be admitted for law. And how did I know I wanted to do law? I didn't even think about it in terms of my dad, because actually my dad had been a magistrate part of his life. I didn't think like that. When growing up in school, I thought I was going to be a teacher. I loved the way teachers lived. I thought they had a lovely life. I wanted to play piano, to play guitar, just sing to students and be nice. I thought teachers were just great people. But the teachers told me I could do better than that. So we had very good career guidance, I think. And from the way I worked and performed, they advised me to place choices that would promote my talents.
Yes.
And so that is actually how I came to
Makerere
University to do law.
Yeah, to do law.
Yes.
So did you do any other courses? I mean, did you do any other degrees after Makerere?
Yes, before Makerere, actually, a few weeks before, because there was a problem with one of my results. It didn't come out quite on time. So they actually admitted me to MDD.
Oh, really?
So if you're talking about did you do anything else, I did an MDD class for 6 weeks.
What?
And I loved it. In Makerere with Father Grimes and the leotards and all these wonderful things.
Yes.
And I loved it because I'm partly a music student, music lover. And I had done music even for my high school, which was a rare thing.
Right.
So I was actually grateful to God for all that.
Right.
But my result, my headmaster, the whole of the district pushed for my results because they knew I was a good student, and all my results came out. One of them hadn't come out. So all
after
of them came out, and then I
you
moved
went to the law school. So after LDC, what happened?
After LDC, I actually got married 3 weeks after Law Development Center. So what happened, because of that delay to join the law school, I needed school notes, law notes which had been done before. My classmates were needing their notes, so I could not ask them for their notes. So I asked, because I was a Christian and was in fellowship. As soon as I came, I identified myself to the Christian fellowship in the hall of residence I was living in, and I said I was in Complex Hall.
You're in CCE.
CCE.
Yes.
But I remember we admired you, Joy, very much. And I recall that you came for one of our expos, I think at the main Christian Union. We loved you. We always admired you.
Yes.
Anyway, so I was advised to go to Brother Bam. He was called Brother Bam. George.
George. Your husband was called Brother Bam.
To get some notes. And he gave me some notes. And then he took a liking to me, which I didn't know.
Right.
So I thought, all right, Brother Bam, everybody says he's good, so no problem. I mean, you can be a good friend, you know. But it's, he kind of went on about it until I realized, okay, maybe God is saying something here. And I had made up my mind. I had purposed right from high school that I would be married to a person who is a Christian. I said, whatever happens, I would never marry a person who is not a professed Christian. So then George happened somewhere, in my law, between I think second and third year. And so we began relating on a low scale, really. But at LDC, he became very serious and even mooted marriage. And I thought, is that too soon or what? But he was so serious that we actually did everything from the month of March to September. We got married in September. We did Kwanjula, we did all those things that you need to do. The writing letters. In my culture, you write a letter to the parents and they agree on the dowry, is it bride price for that reason. And then you do the Kwanjula and then the marriage. So I had never stayed away from home. I had been in either boarding house or university hall. And then straight 3 weeks from there, I got married. And my dad was really worried. So I thought, are you going to manage, But,
marriage,
I'm now 32 years married.
In marriage, wow. Yes. So tell me, so you got a job after? Did you get a job?
Yes. So what happened is, in the time, so this is about 1992 when we get married. And I have finished university, I have graduated. I have finished LDC, but not yet graduated from LDC. So we go to Arua. I joined my husband
Okay.
The young family moves to Arua city.
Yes.
Very far from home, very far from Kampala. But my husband was a resident state attorney. So I moved with him. And then while in Arua, there were adverts made for public service. So I came back to Kampala, applied for a job in the public service. And when I was asked, and that's another turning point for me, when I was asked, where do you want to work? I told this whole public service commission that was sitting, and I said to them, I want to work in Arua. And they looked at this young girl. They said, but you're not from there. I said, yeah, I'm not, but my husband is there, and I want to be separate from him. And they said, but you don't have to do that. You can start your life in Kampala.
Yes.
And I said, no, I want to be with my husband, so I would like to be posted to Arua.
Yeah.
It was a strange case. They all looked at me like a very strange thing had happened. But yes, we moved to Arua. That was my first job. And my first job was to work with George in the State Attorney's office. So we were both working for the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions,
Yes.
which now we call the ODPP. And we shared one little office. Literally, I think it was this corner where we are seated, literally that wide.
That you were both sitting in that office.
In that office, and the table we had was just a glorified coffee set. That was the office table. It was a very tiny office given as a boys' quarters to some government, office.
Yes. And how long were you in that?
I sat in there for about probably 9 months or 6 months.
So you were with your husband in the same office?
Yes, same office, and he became very uncomfortable.
He
became extremely...
I was going to say, actually, that it must have been beautiful regardless of...
I loved it.
Yes, of course.
I absolutely loved it. And he was so not amused. And he said, this is not going to work.
Yes.
I said, but I'm so happy. I got there and I mowed his files. He had files for perusal. As a state attorney, you peruse files and give advice. I loved doing it. I would just do it like a machine. I just perused so many files because we were in charge of the whole of West Nile. We were in charge of Arua, of Nebi, and Pakwach, and Madi, the whole of that whole region. We were in charge of it. Just the two of us.
Wow.
All the murder cases came to us.
Wow.
All the aggravated robbery cases came to us. All the defilement cases came to us.
Yes.
Cattle rustling, anything.
Yes.
So I did all that. I thought I loved my work. And then he said, no, I don't think it's a good idea. And he said, he actually urged me, why don't you apply to become a magistrate? Oh. My husband said it out of the discomfort of sitting in the same office with me. And the magistrate's office was right across the road, like we're sitting across each other. There's a road in between. And he said, why don't you go across? And I was like, do you really want me to do that? I was actually quite happy here. So I think I'm a person who settles. I can easily settle.
Yes, yes.
And then he said, no, don't settle here. I believe you can be a good magistrate. So I applied and came for the interview again, public service, this time for the judiciary. Public service used to do for everything, for the judiciary, and I told them I was a state attorney. And I recall the Deputy Chief Justice Emeritus, Justice Butera, was the chief registrar, and he used to sit in the interviews. It doesn't happen like that these days. So he looked at me, this very young girl, fresh from university, and I'm saying, I work in Arua. He looked at me like, then he said, do you want to cross over? I said, yes. And then I recall that they talked about it, because it's like I got the job. Because they talked about it and they asked, then someone asked, but can she cross over when she's from another department? And Justice Butera said, we shall make it happen. And they talked with a public service person. They actually moved my file from the office of the Minister of Justice, and we were under Minister of Justice those days, and moved it to the judiciary. And then I came as I got posting instructions. So I had got posting instructions for being a pupil state attorney. I now got posting instructions for a magistrate grade 1.
So how long were you a magistrate?
I was a magistrate grade 1 for like just 5 years. So, and one other thing, when I was in Arua, my chief magistrate died. I had just reported. I think we'd been there like a year, and we were just two of us. And again, we were in charge of that whole region with just one other magistrate in Nebi. And then the chief died. And when the chief magistrate of Arua died, he was called Robert Opio, his worship Robert Opio, I was left alone at the station. So as what you'd call almost a pupil,
ended up having taken those responsibilities.
Yes. And when he died, I took care of the, that whole funeral. I remember that is the time when I was tested for integrity, because people loved him. They collected so much money. I was holding, and I think those days we had big bundle. I was holding a big bundle of money like this big in my hands. And people looked at me and like, is that money collected for
the burial?
I said, yes, and I'm giving it to the wife. And I handed it to the wife. They looked at me like, really? I said, yes, I am. And we did that. We looked after her until the family moved.
Yeah.
And I did sessions with judges after the chief had passed on. And just as a learner grade 1, but I was able to run sessions and run them really, really well, because I got their guidance step by step by step. And then after that, we were transferred from Arua.
Yes.
I made as a magistrate grade 1 for another 5 years, and then I became a chief magistrate of Buganda Road Chief Magistrate's Court.
Oh. So how long were you a chief magistrate?
I was a chief magistrate from 1998 and up to about 2001. And then the family moved to Mexico City.
Oh, you moved out of the country.
We all moved out of the country. I mean, George was working for Shell at that point. He had left the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and was working for Shell as a law legal officer, company secretary, HR, and then he was moved to Mexico City.
So you decided to take a break?
Yes, I took a career break, and I actually applied to do masters at that point.
Good.
And my husband very graciously took me to school.
That's nice.
To a very, very powerful Christian school in Dallas, Texas. It's called the Deadman School of Law. It's part of the Southern Methodist University, to which George Bush has a library. That's where he has a library. And which husband pays for such a big private university? I'm so blessed.
Wow.
That again was a turning point in my life. I recall a professor who said to us, and I was very good at constitutional law and mediation and company law, because you picked your subjects, and international human rights, and also international international transactions, commercial transactions. So one professor asked me, why do you think you're studying this LLM? And I said to him, I'm trying to figure it out, because we pick quite a few things, and I'm just seeing how this can translate for me. And then he said, I think you're in this course because you're going to advise governments. And at that point, I didn't see how that was relevant. How my LLM, because I used to see people who come from LLM either work for women's organizations or start up their own NGO or get into advocacy, activism, things like that. So when he said, you are going to advise governments, I sort of sat back and thought, what does that really mean? So I began taking the constitutional law class quite seriously, and it has really helped me.
Wow.
When we left Mexico, we went to live in England for 8 years, and and I actually became a lecturer at a university in the UK, and all that was a career break for me. And then I was called. I didn't answer an advert. I didn't.
You were called.
I was called. I was headhunted. Headhunted to come and become a judge.
Oh, wow.
Of the High Court of Uganda in 2010.
In 2010.
So I had left in 2001, and I returned in 2010 at the end.
So then you become a judge of the High Court.
A trial judge in the High Court of Uganda, and I was posted to the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court.
Yes.
And then from there, 5 years later, I became a judge of the Court of Appeal. But in between, I had done 2 commissions. And,
yes, those
yes,
powerful commissions. Yes.
And then while I was at the Court of Appeal, that's where I did the last commission, the land inquiry.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
went back to the Court of Appeal and then was appointed on promotion to the Supreme Court of Uganda.
Wow. The highest.
The Supreme.
Yes.
They say that when you are in this court,
yes.
If you lose a case in this court, you can only appeal to God.
Oh yes, if someone loses a court,
yes. There's no other court to appeal to. Of course, the president can give clemency.
Yes,
the president has a prerogative of mercy, and he can forgive anybody for anything they've done. But aside from the clemency of the president, you have to appeal to God.
Wow. So next question is, what challenges have you faced as a woman rising in the Supreme Court bench, and how did you overcome them?
Wow. Oh, well, so we are born into this world. You don't choose your sex. You don't choose whether you're going to be female or male. You don't choose your parents. You don't choose. There are things you can eventually choose. You can choose work. You can choose. So we're born with female, and then you got to deal with that.
Yes.
Having gone to a co-ed school at high school, I didn't quite appreciate the pushback that you might get at the workplace. Because what happened, because I was in a mixed school, and we were a group of girls. Most of us now are either professors or highly placed somewhere. One of us is a minister, a full cabinet minister. That group of girls, we were tough cookies. We kind of disobeyed all the stereotypes about girls. So we were in a co-ed school, but we would go and have our meals on time. They say girls come late, girls don't finish their food, girls don't do this. We did the opposite. So to an extent, we broke barriers, a lot of barriers actually. My father told me I was one of the first two people in the whole clan to get a degree. The other cousin who got a degree is now a member of parliament, and they were very proud of us. So we broke many stereotypes, we broke many barriers. However, one of the challenges you realize is that you are maybe doing a career during, for example, childbearing years, especially when you start off in the judiciary.
Yes.
And you got to deal with that. I recall when I gave birth to Sheila, we only had 45 days for leave. And for some reason, mine were counted to 43. And that really, really set me back. I felt sad that I left my child on day 43 and had to come to work. And then that's just a challenge. I had to deal with how do you do that. So I set about, making sure, for instance, that I had all the milk done in the morning, left in like almost 12 bottles. I used to tell the lady who looked after my baby girl that once she's done with a bottle, don't give it to her again. Give it the next bottle. And she had enough milk to go until I returned home. And that was a challenge.
Yes, I can imagine.
And I felt it very, very personally that I didn't have enough time. But I think I brought up a tough cookie too, because Sheila she's grown up to be a nice, good fighter. She's a lawyer as well. Then the other challenge, I think, is that sometimes you can be misunderstood when you're doing the right thing. And you're doing the right thing in circumstances where it's not fashionable to do the right thing, it can really cause a challenge. Or what you strongly believe and are convinced, you have the deep conviction that this is the right thing to do. And then it's probably not understood that way by a section of people that would want to do otherwise. For instance, when I was doing the land inquiry, you have to remember that one of the problems with the land question in Uganda is that land has become a theater for interactions of, let's say, business interests, customary interests, personal family interests. There is so much conflict going around land because somebody wants it. Somebody, for example, might want 3 square miles of land to actually do a very productive business. But the 3 square miles of land he wants is has got tenants who have been there all their lives. So one of the questions we kept facing was, how do you investigate this case and then deal with the situation where the person wants to take the land using all means, lawful and unlawful. They get court orders. Sometimes they do all kinds of things.
They try to evict,
sometimes not with a lawful order.
Yes.
And then so we actually did run clinics on the side, and in the clinics we tried to do mediation. And in the mediation, we tried actually to use the law to say, look, the law says you can talk to to the people on the ground. Why don't you buy them out? Why don't you give them a section of the land, maybe at the end of the land, so you can have all the land? But there are these things where you think you're doing the right thing, but you want to do the right thing, but people think that you're not doing the right thing to their interest.
Yes.
And so you don't necessarily, and also being a judge, you cannot please everybody. Every time you sit to hear a case, one side will lose and one side will win. That's why these days we encourage mediation, because in mediation, it's a win-win. You get something, everybody gets something. But in a pure case, the judge will be misunderstood.
Yes.
You take a side and you will be misunderstood.
Yes.
That's why we state our reasons. So for me, the being misunderstood, and being misunderstood because you're a woman, and being misunderstood because, for instance, you're saying this is not right, and someone says you're emotional because you're being a woman. But I have lived, I'm telling you, I'm so grateful to God. I have lived to see that this emotional thing, someone saying emotional doesn't belong to women, it belongs to humans. I've seen a lot of emotional judges, and most of them are not women. So I think that when you're misunderstood, it can be very painful, and it can set you back even.
Yes.
The other thing is that sometimes you have a baby, you have to sit by burn the midnight oil. You are not going to explain to anybody that my judgment is not ready because my baby fell sick. You're not going to explain to anybody that my mom is sick. We are the caregivers. So you're kind of working over and above. And so I told you that I came when my clan were the first two to graduate.
Yes,
so you can see that's also can be a challenge from my father's clan. So breaking that barrier and without having resistance is
it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yes,
and when you get the resistance, not answering back, I recall that there are times when I was faced with groups of people who really were not happy at all. But I don't remember even once that I went to the TV and said, so-and-so said this, and I don't agree with them. I didn't. I just felt that, first of all,
you
as a judge,
yourself,
yes, God just gave me so much restraint.
Yes.
And I felt my work is not to be answering back whether they are right or wrong. And I thank God for that, because it preserved relationships. When everything was said and done, when the cameras were off, when the lights were off, I was able to walk to these people and talk to them. And we were able to interact. I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
And just the humility that God gives in those situations. Emotional intelligence. I had to get that. Through my work, I've had to learn that. Just restraint, just a wise word, just a small question that sort of turns things around, or they're not saying anything at all. A lot of emotional intelligence there. And for me, the challenges have actually helped me to grow.
Yes, amen. So Lady Justice, we need to go into a break right now.
Right.
So viewers, we'll be right back after this break.
Thank you.
In our way of faith, there are things that are or could be demanded by heaven as a response to your faith in God, and some of which might not be conducive. Some things will provoke you to leave your status, to leave your credibility, to leave your positioning, to leave whatever crown you have, because God wants to launch you deeper in places of access concerning His purpose. Be broken and flexible enough to do what God desires. Don't ever let anything you have on your life to discourage you or separate you from the perfect will of God concerning your life. Never be offended where you know this is a response to your faith.
Manifest TV, Christ revealed.
Watch the Phaneroo live services on Phaneroo YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Phaneroo Ministries International, and on Phaneroo Facebook page, facebook.com/Phaneroo. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join the experience of our official Phaneroo TikTok channel. Share the experience with your friends. You can also listen to Phaneroo podcasts every day. Phaneroo, make manifest.
Welcome back from the break. You're still watching Soaring with Eagles. And my name is Pastor Joy Ninsiima. And our guest today is Lady Justice Catherine Bamugemerire. So, Lady Justice, what role do you believe empathy plays in judicial work? And how do you balance empathy with impartiality?
Thank you very much. That's a good question to ask. Judicial work is built on quite a number of values. It's built on the value of integrity, it's built on the value of impartiality, it's built on the value of propriety. It's one of those roles that you must play without fear or favor. Now, empathy, on the other hand, is that ability to be able to put yourself in the situation of another, to just have a mind switch that helps you understand what the other person is saying, and imagine you were them, and then how would you make that decision? Now, as a judge, you're the umpire, so you have two sides. You have two people who need your empathy. You have maybe if it's a complainant, you have the plaintiff, and then you have the defendant, or you have the accused person, and then you have the state. And you put yourself either in the feet of the victim or in the feet of the person who is accused. And ask yourself, what would you do? Well, the difference between that and sympathy is actually what makes a difference. So empathy is not sympathy. You're not just allowing your feelings to be taken up by somebody just because maybe they were crying or mourning or they have a very eloquent story. That is more of sympathy. Empathy is actually putting yourself in another person's situation. An empathetic judicial officer is actually a good judicial officer, because when you have empathy, you're able to actually be fair. You're able to then understand and come to the bottom of the issues. And when you get to the bottom of the issues, you're able to actually deal with the case and find a lasting solution. So empathy is a very powerful tool to judicial work. I don't think we talk about it enough.
Yes.
It is dangerous to be a judicial officer who just reads the law and just sits and cuts according to the law in Uganda we call it cutting, but who sits and makes decisions, who sits and arrives at a judgment just based on the law without any other consideration. Remember, judicial officers are not elected in Uganda. We are appointed. And because we are appointed, we lack the democratic attribute that MPs have. So it is called a democratic deficit. Because we have a democratic deficit, we need to learn to imagine what people are going through, so that when we make decisions, they actually replicate what people feel on the ground. So a good judge should be able to write and arrive at a judgment which makes people say, this is fair, this is just, this sounds right. And for instance, if there has been a murder on a village, and when the judicial officer probably is not empathetic enough, you may, for example, release the murderer, even on bail. When they go back there, they'll get killed because the society is not with you.
Not, yes.
On the other hand, somebody could be falsely accused of murder. If you are able to read and understand the facts of the case and, really understand it very well, you're able to acquit, and people will be happy. They will say, you are a fair judge. It is difficult, of course, as a judicial officer always to please people. You don't try to please people. You try to do the right thing. Try to do what you know is the right according to the facts and according to the law. Empathy is an important attribute if we are to have acceptability in society as a judiciary. It actually brings public trust. Whenever there is empathy, there's a big building of public trust. Whenever there is empathy, there is you get to the bottom of issues, and you actually end up with fairer decisions. So empathy is a complement. Empathy doesn't take away from impartiality. Empathy actually builds impartiality, in my view. It is sympathy which takes away, but empathy doesn't.
Yes, wow. That's beautiful. So tell me, Lady Justice, how do you unwind and rejuvenate yourself outside of work?
Wow, how do I unwind? How do I rejuvenate? I do a number of things. One, I, for instance, love being with young people, speaking to young people. I find that rejuvenating when you speak to and sort of do a life coach type thing. I love to speak to young people. That gives me a lot of encouragement. But the other thing I do is look after myself physically.
Yes.
I've learned that as you grow older, the body doesn't listen to you. So you need to have the body pull back.
Yes.
So I am an enthusiast for exercise, for women. Older women can still exercise. We can do things that are within our, ability to do. You don't, for instance, we can't do things that young people can do, but we can walk, for instance.
Yes.
You can do some gym exercises.
Yes.
We can do aerobics. We can do intermittent fasting. For me, that also keeps me grounded because partly
you look very nice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Intermittent fasting is very, very powerful. And also joining, for example, Weight Watchers. So looking after your health in terms of the diet you have in a season.
Yes.
So you should have seasonal diets. You can say, for this season, I'm going to have keto, or for that season, I'm going to go, let's say, Middle Eastern or something, or do something about it, or so that you actually look after your health and you don't let yourself go. It's part of self-love. It's part of, and if you're going to love other people, if you're going to be available for your family, if you're going to be available for your children, you need to start being available for yourself first.
Yes.
When you're available for yourself first, then you'll know what to do with other people.
Wow. So what is that one book that greatly influenced your life?
Wow, it was difficult to answer that question. It is very difficult to answer that question because there are so many books.
Yes.
I've read over my life. When we grew up, my mother made sure we read books from childhood.
Yes.
But the one book that I thought touched me most was To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
A bird, yeah?
Yes.
By Harper Lee. This book is about justice. It's about racial justice. It's about empathy. It's about a lawyer called Atticus Finch who chooses against societal pressure to represent a black youth who was falsely accused of raping a white girl. And the whole community, hated him because it was always assumed that when a white girl says a black man has done this, it must be true. And so the boy was falsely accused, and he decided he would defend him. The mockingbird in this case was that young man. He had done nothing wrong, and there he was. And so I think as a law student, as a law teacher, I learned this as a law teacher because I realized when I went to teach in England, every law school gives students books to read, and one of the books you advise to read is To Kill a Mockingbird, because it should never be, as a lawyer, as a person who would one day become a judge, that it should never be that you actually fail to defend an innocent person, or that you actually found an innocent person guilty of what they did not do. In fact, there was a saying that you would rather have 99 guilty men go free than release one. You'd rather have 99 guilty men go free than convict one innocent person. That the whole essence of To Kill a Mockingbird. Would you do injustice to a person who's not done any wrong to you? It calls for empathy. It calls for a call to justice. It calls for fairness. It calls for empathy, really. I can't overuse that word.
Yes. So if you could have dinner with one historical figure, who would it be and why?
Well, I've thought hard and long. There's so many people I would love to have dinner with. But I'm thinking I would love to understand, to get into the mind of Condoleezza Rice. Yeah.
Interesting.
I found the way she managed the relationship with President George Bush, the American president. I found that amazing. Like a black woman was the main advisor, sat long hours reading and getting ready to give wisdom.
Yes.
To impart wisdom into an American president. I would love to have dinner with her and ask how she did it.
You will one day, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes. So what is that one habit or practice that you believe contributes most to your success?
When you say one, it's hard. But let me say,
well,
there are many. But
yes.
To me, I believe it is consistency, but born in prayer. Personally, consistently coming to work in my office. From that, it really puts me at a level of efficiency that I think is actually valued by most people. If you can build that consistency, in my family we wake up very, very early. And it doesn't matter where we are or in what part of the world we are, we will wake up early and do morning chores and then get up and get to work, for instance, or get to read. Get up early, do something, and then get to read a book, get to do something. But being consistent at that you do, and doing it every day, and doing it every day until you become so good at it. One of the and I insist on consistency because one of the chief justices we had, Chief Justice Hodoki, one time said to us who were new judges, he said, some of the judges who have joined don't write their judgments on time. And then he said, his habit is to write a judgment. He said, whenever you feel like procrastinating, just go and write. just go back to the desk and start writing. That's part of consistency.
Right.
That as you keep writing, you get better. As you keep writing, you do more. As you keep writing, you actually produce work, and you're never behind schedule.
So I want us to talk about just a little about your faith journey before we go to the end. How has your faith been very instrumental in your career?
Thank you very much. I value my faith. I'm a Christian, a professed Christian. I'm not ashamed to say that. And I became a Christian very, very young and consistently went through. It hasn't been easy, obviously. There are hurdles at every stage. Every stage, they say, has its own Satan, and you overcome that. But one of the things that it has done for me is solidified the values that I actually hold dear. The value of integrity, for example. That it can be said that Catherine won't do that.
Yes.
That sometimes I don't have to go and tell someone I won't do that. Someone else will tell them, don't bother Catherine, she won't do that. I think that for me it comes from the strong Christian ethic and being incorruptible, the value to not accept to have justice bought, the value to be fair to all people, to be honest, the value of honesty, that the Catherine you see now will not be different from the Catherine you see in a different corner, and then loyalty, like knowing that this is my job and I respect my bosses, I respect my work, I respect myself, honor. Christianity gives you that. I look back and I just thank God. I thank God for the honor He brings on our lives. He gives us, I think His ability, the Lord's ability to do that can't even be measured. And I think that earthly honors are great, but I think the greatest honor is to know that you're a child of God. And that when we pray, He answers us.
Amen. That's
and
true.
That He actually loves family. So for me, part of my miracle of being a Christian was actually having family.
Yes.
It was a miracle for me, and I value that a lot. And I cultivate that. I grow it. I don't take it for granted.
Yes. And you're an admirable family.
We don't take that.
Yes,
we are just a normal family with normal family issues, but part of it is to try and remain
grounded.
Stay grounded.
Yes.
We have friends, Christian friends, to whom we are
accountable to.
Yes. So there's accountability.
Yes.
There's transparency.
You're right.
All those values make it easier to do them when you actually are answerable to God.
That's true.
That's what the president asked me one day. He said, "Why do you do your work excellently?" And I said, "Your Excellency, if I'm working for Your Excellency, I must do excellent work. But more important is the glory of God."
Amen.
Because when I glorify God, then Your Excellency, you look good. And I want my employer to look good. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's really working to the glory of God first.
Yes.
And then you are able to achieve excellence.
Wow, that's beautiful. So, Lady Justice, we've come to the end of the show. I would like you to look into the camera and give your parting shots. May the Holy Spirit lead you.
Yes.
If you feel like talking to the young ladies out there, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Joy, for this moment to be able to speak about my life. It's not something I do naturally. It's very difficult, actually. I think, it took a while for us to do this. Because I have to convince myself that I'm not going against my own belief and to do this. But speaking to young people, both male and female, I would say that you have life. God gave us life, the ability to breathe, to wake up in the morning and breathe. Let's not take that life for granted. God has given us now. We are in the now. We are in the present. We are alive today. And if you're alive today, it means you have an opportunity to change today. And so I would suggest that you actually become aware of yourself, who you are. When you become self-aware, you will know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, and therefore you will try to excel at the things you're very capable of. And once you find the thing at which you're good, you will actually excel. Some people are good at speaking, and they have actually made billions of money from just being able to speak. So find the thing that you're good at by becoming self-aware. Also be aware of your surroundings. Can I really beg that we become more aware of our surroundings? The world is becoming very unsafe. There are so many dangers out there, and if we are not aware of what could go wrong, we can walk into very uncomfortable situations, which could harm us, which could affect your destiny, which could affect your ability to make decisions for tomorrow. And then don't be worried. Live today, live happy, live positive, be positive. I believe in my glass being half full. This glass of mine is half full. I believe that. I believe it's not half empty. I'm not a negative person. And I always try to say, be positive, especially because if you believe that there is God, then you know that with Him all things are possible. And if you're not positive, you will give up. If you're not positive, you'll say negative things. Even now, if it is to mothers, you'll say negative things to your children. You'll speak negative things over your employees. Let me say this very quickly. There's an employer I've told, a very private employer, who was so negative that women under her began to miscarry.
What?
They miscarried, they got depressed, they lost jobs, they could not get promoted, but part of it was negativity. So let's avoid negativity and just exude positivity, exude gratitude, exude ability to be thankful. You know, we are not thankful enough for the things we have. We are not thankful enough for the air we breathe. We are not thankful enough that where you are is safe. Finally, I would say that look after yourself. Love yourself. Look after yourself and look after your surroundings. It costs nothing to do that. Sometimes it just means washing, really. Sometimes it just means buying an extremely cheap deodorant so that your body can smell nice. So look after yourself. Don't let yourself go, no matter what you're going through. No matter what has happened, no matter what happened yesterday, no matter what your past was, no matter what you were not capable of getting before, don't give up hope, because tomorrow is bright.
Wow.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. That was powerful.
Thank you.
That was very powerful.
Thank you.
So viewers would like to thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, may the Lord bless you, expand your territories and borders, lay His hand upon you, and keep you far away from evil. Bye-bye.
Manifest TV, Christ revealed.
Let it shine! You put in the hours to make your brand the greatest. You go the extra mile to allow it achieve success. It deserves to be treated